What's up, guys? It's Jeremiah here with Hill Shadows. Starting next week, Ashley and I will be back again with live videos for every single podcast episode. Not only that, we'll be going out in the field and recording some cool things around in the central Kentucky area and maybe even some other places in the near future. But till next week, we'll be kind of setting up the new equipment and checking it out and getting everything ready. For this week, we have a wonderful episode with some really crazy, strange encounters coming from Canada and maybe some other places. So hopefully you guys enjoy this week's episode. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. What's up, guys? Welcome back again to another episode of the Hill Shadows podcast. I'm Jeremiah, and with me, as usual, is my wife, Ashley. Hopefully everybody's having a wonderful week. It's been a pretty busy week on our end. Been a lot of going-ons, and I made the dire mistake of dining on White Castle last night. And at 43, I gotta say I can't do it anymore. There was a time that I could, but that time is long gone. I don't know if I stepped into a portal and went into another dimension, but that's not for me, not anymore. But yeah, it's random, but it's true. So yeah, welcome back. If you guys are a fan of the strange, the unusual, unexplainable, the supernatural, the paranormal, that kind of thing, hit the subscribe button. Each week, Ashley and I go over different encounters people have with very strange things that we're interested in very much so. This week, I got some stuff coming out of our northern neighbor, Canada. Some really interesting stuff. I found a good one about a crawler.
Okay.
And you know I love talking about crawlers.
Yeah.
The dolphin skin things.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't checked it out, we got some past episodes. And a few of them we talk about these things called crawlers. And it's weird because they're not talked about frequently, but if you do a lot of research about things people encounter out in remote areas, you'll occasionally hear about these weird skinny looking things, very pale with what appears to be like a dolphin like skin or a very stretched out like skin. It sounds very creepy. One such sighting we went over was 30 or 40 miles from where we're at, Natural Bridge.
Yeah.
And
Was it Natural Bridge or Red?
it was
Red River
it was
Forest?
Natural Bridge.
Is that
It
the
was
same
on.
thing?
It's in the same area, yes. It was on the very main trail to
Yeah.
go up to Natural Bridge, and I've been on that trail, a dozen times. And I think we're gonna go down there soon and record. Right, just check it out.
Yeah.
It's beautiful down there.
Can't you go kayaking down there too?
I believe so, but I'm not familiar with any areas where you can just go, what do you call it, set in. And
Dog or what's it
what
called?
I can't think of it.
My goodness.
But yeah,
Like
I can't.
What is the
I don't
word?
know what the word is. But where you take your kayak down
the
and
launching pad.
launch it, where you launch it. That's the word, launch. The
Launch
word
it,
is
dog.
launch, where you launch. But yeah, I'm not familiar with like where you would launch and if that would be a place where you could go out and then come back to that location. Because
Okay.
I know some of the waters are kind of swift in that area.
Mm.
But it's beautiful,
Or
and
something.
yeah, we're gonna get out and get some really beautiful things on camera this year. I actually just upgraded some stuff to be able to get a little better footage. So I'm really intrigued and interested to try everything out.
Excited. you mean?
Excited, yes. But I'm very intrigued by everything as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, you said you have one, right? Or did you stumble? You usually start
I have
with
at
one
least
and
one, yeah.
you stumble into a few more. I guess I'll get started tonight.
I mean, I've been researching forever though. I've read so much, but nothing was like.
You
I don't
gotta
know.
you gotta specify on what you're looking for.
I did a
sometimes.
number
Like,
of different things.
sometimes it's just
None of them felt good enough for me.
it's just keying it in the right way.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go over the crawler one first because it sounded pretty cool. I haven't read this yet.
Okay, well, let me tell you this first. I
Okay.
did come across a story that evidently this is kind of known a bit by a lot of people, but I'd never heard of it.
What's
But
that?
some years ago or something, there was like, some people camping or something in the woods. Somebody was in the woods. And this boy sees a girl, but it's like a wolf girl. And she's
Okay.
eating the carcass of some animal. And I guess he goes and tells someone, authorities or something, and they come back and capture this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess somehow it escapes them in the middle of the night. I don't know. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Where did you hear this at?
I don't know where I heard it at. I'll look it up in a second. I've got this other story pulled up, and I don't.
Well,
want
that
it to
makes me
get
think
lost.
of the what I heard a video the other day, just kind of playing randomly about lycanthropic parvovirus.
Uh-huh.
Is that right?
Something like that.
It was basically it's this documented recording that's being stored at some university that was I don't know. It sounds like somebody who has studied like vampires, werewolves. In this particular instance, werewolves.
Mm-hmm.
The one I listened to, and studied them for a very prolonged period. And this was a journal about what happens during transformation and the facial structure, being reconstructed. It's just very detailed, very strange. It's probably 30 or 40 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see if I can find it and post a link down in the description so you guys can check it out. It's really, really interesting. There's also two other videos. One on like the vampirism and another on a zombie type.
Yeah. I
type,
listened to a little bit of zombie
infection.
one earlier today, actually.
Really crazy stuff, man. And basically, what this person was saying was like, nothing that's in our folklore is fake. Like everything is based on real stuff.
Right. I fully believe that.
It seems like it more and more. Like the more we research things, like
Uh-huh.
there's gnomes and I mean everything you could imagine, right? I just thought of something else I wanted to talk about. It's a cryptid called. I know you probably not heard of this one.
Okay.
The anxiety antler.
No.
I gotta Google this because I'd never heard of it, and then a video just played all the way through the other day about the anxiety antler, and it's a strange beast that I don't know what you would say. It looks like I don't know if I could even find anything.
I
about
automatically
it, right?
think of a Wendigo.
It would probably be similar, yeah, but it's a docile type creature. Like it's not something you want to go seeking out, right?
Okay.
Man, I wish I could
Oh my
find
gosh.
something about this. I really can't.
I think
I'll
we
tell
should
you
probably
what.
start recording these a little bit earlier in the day because
I'll try, man.
I'm tired.
I'll try. I'm usually in here waiting on Ashley for about an hour.
Because I'm trying to make
Minimum, I'm in here for an hour just waiting. Probably like 2 hours.
Isn't that your whole life?
I come
though?
in
Like
here
you're always
2
waiting
hours.
For me to get ready
Oh,
for
for
something.
everything. For everything. Yeah, not just one or two things.
I'm sorry.
I can't find anything out about the anxiety antler. I hope
must
I'm
be
right
fake.
about what it's called. It is something. I'm pretty sure. If I can find the video again, I'll post a link down
Okay.
in the description box.
Oh my!
I'm gonna go over my first one.
All right, let's go.
I found these on Reddit. I found some cool stuff on Reddit. If you dig deep enough, you can find some juicy stuff here. And this one's under the subreddit of crawler sightings. And this one comes from user outrageous silver 622, and this was from 164 days ago. And it's titled sighting in Ontario, Canada.
All right.
This is a follow-up post to my original one here about the sighting I had on the east coast of Canada early last year. This instance happened a few years prior to the Nova Scotia incident. I would estimate somewhere between 2014 and 16, and is much less dramatic, though marks my first experience with whatever these things are, and one of my first really inexplicable paranormal experiences. What's interesting is how similar the creature in question was in physiology, behavior, and especially the fact that both sightings occurred at night in a boggy, coniferous wetland environment on the fringe of human habitation. I was somewhere between 19 and 21, give or take. I'm gonna have to put these glasses on here. Hold on. I got this. And like most weekends, I was with my friends in the woods partying. We were all living in southwestern Ontario, roughly outside of the city of Kitchener Waterloo, where the furthest outer suburb meets the edge of the countryside. This area of Ontario is interesting because it's a transition zone, located on the limestone country around the Niagara escarpment, presumably near some caves, as many sightings have been, and features areas of mixed broadleaf and coniferous forest, farmland, remnants of prairie and savanna, and cool, dark, boggy eastern cedar woodland, some of which is extremely old growth. The landscape, for Americans unfamiliar, is similar to the landscape in the eastern portion of the upper Midwest. I hear Wisconsin in particular is basically the same. I won't go into detail or answer any more questions about specific locations, etc., as this is where I spent my teens and I have friends and family still living within a kilometer or two of where the story takes place. So please respect that. The last thing I want is for the backdrop of this story in particular to blow up as some kind of hot spot. Unlike the area down east in my last story, which was a random transient spot on a country road. We had one of our usual bush parties in the Oak Savannah in a nature park about 5 kilometers along the trails from my best friend's parents' place, and 15 or so of us were walking back sometime well after midnight. The weather was warm and muggy, and so my best guess puts it at somewhere between July and September. There were probably 15 of us, and we were walking single file along the boardwalk that crossed through the cedar swamp on the edge of the park. Most of the gang, my best friend included, was quite drunk and stoned, and we were having a rowdy, raucous good time. I was actually reasonably sober, hadn't had anything to smoke, both of which were very unusual at the time, and was bringing up the rear since I had a flashlight and was a little concerned about one of the drunks tripping and falling as it was an exceptionally dark night, as cloudy summer nights can be in southern Ontario under the thick forest cover. I'm making this part clear because I want it to be evident that I wasn't really impaired, and that even though I'd had a few drinks, I still had the clarity to be concerned with us getting back without incident, and felt in control enough to follow the group by myself with the lights. As I mentioned, the atmosphere was pretty jovial and crude, as is typical for 15 to 20-year-old guys liquored on a summer night, and while there were preceding times where the forest felt weird and foreboding, despite all being experienced outdoorsmen in much more remote areas and spending most of our weekends in the woods, this was not one of those times. Being as I was hung back from the group a little bit, I wasn't entirely locked into the gang's conversation and distracted and kind of doing my own thing. I was sweeping the flashlight around somewhat to my left and right as I enjoyed the nighttime scenery. I swept the flashlight to the right and noticed something kind of strange. I thought I spotted a deer darting away from the light of my flashlight off into the thicker, drier area of trees beyond the cedar swamp, maybe 30 to 50 feet away from the boardwalk. As I watched it amble on a sort of semi-parallel diagonal alongside us and out of view, I started to feel sick. Something about the way it moved and the way it was shaped didn't make sense for a deer or any other animal I knew. We don't have much in the way of wildlife in southwest Ontario anyway, because of how much human land use there is, and outside of small irrelevant animals like foxes, raccoons, etc., there are really only deer and coyotes. I would consider that bears and wolves are possible in theory, but highly, highly unlikely as far as I've ever heard. The animal, a skinny humanoid, was the same shade of white as the thing I saw in the experience linked above. The same luminescent grayish white dolphin skin. It doesn't say dolphin skin, I'm putting that in there. As the reflective strips on a pair of jogging pants, though duller. I saw no face in this instance either, though the head was equally bald and round or oblong, like a primate's. Again, it appeared bipedal, though bent over on all fours, ass in the air. Unlike the galloping creature that I saw in Nova Scotia, this one seemed to be moving more slowly, at a pace akin to a jog. Seemed to be trotting, almost like the gait of a happy dog. I remember noticing I remember noticing tons of hips sway as it walked, almost in the squat sort of way a marmot, skunk, or badger moves. This makes sense for the way a bipedal animal would move on all fours anyway, since hinging at the hips means that the ball and socket joint of the hip can't rotate fully, and the hip flexor muscles being shortened aren't able to be used with the same fluency for lateral forward movement. The thing made zero sound despite running off into the woods right in front of me, which was bizarre considering the number of sticks littering the floor of the forest. I immediately felt my voice catching my throat as immense primal fear gripped me. I realized nobody had seen it, all corked out of their heads and bantering about whatever topic, but also at the same moment it occurred to me that if I raised the alarm, the whole group would panic and scatter, and the ensuing chaos meant somebody would be, at the very least, likely to fall into the swamp or potentially attract whatever I just saw to our group. Was it stalking us? Was it startled and retreating out of fear, or had it been discovered and was escaping the way a cougar does when you face it straight on? I had no idea, and still am not sure. My heart was beating through my chest, but I continued to bring up the rear, constantly swinging my flashlight around and checking over my shoulder, as the hair, just like in the Nova Scotia experience, stood straight up on my neck and arms. We reached the road without further incident, but I was deeply, deeply disturbed. As I mentioned above, several of us had had much more subtle, odd experiences in the forest before this, including hearing strange noises, unfortunately similar to the typical crawler call that gets posted in the sub, wood knocking, feeling as if it were being watched or hunted. And once I personally had felt the intense and overwhelming intuition that I had to leave immediately. Nobody else in the group had felt as such, but I convinced them to go. My best friend, who, unlike Buddy from the East Coast story, is extremely interested in the paranormal, was equally as terrified as I when I told him about this the next day, and forever after. We still walk around those woods when I visit home. We've been quite cautious, always inclined to expect something weird to occur when we head there at night. Prior to my finding this sub, we called it the Wendigo. So the commonalities between the 2015-ish experience and the one I posted about from 2021 occurred at night, occurred on the edge of where humans actively live, occurred in damp, temperate areas of eastern Canada, occurred in wetlands, occurred within probably 25 kilometers of areas that are known to have caves, occurred to me personally, occurred in an area with documented paranormal happenings, and areas where I and my friends personally have experienced subtle weird things leading up to this event and afterwards. And the creature had an identical appearance and movement pattern in both instances, including ones that proved to me as a former serious competitive athlete that imply bipedalism based on the way I understand primate physiology. The creature had unclear motives and was up to unclear activities in both instances. Had an immense and powerful feeling of dread, uncanniness, and even despair afterward that interrupted my sleep. Because of the brevity of this experience and the lack of resources I had at the time of knowledgeable people to discuss this with, I basically wrote it off as a fluke. But the Nova Scotia example was seared into my brain and got me thinking and asking questions about what I experienced. I feel intensely that I experienced the same animal or entity on both occasions and wonder if it's a matter of time before I do so again.
Wow.
So yeah, very interesting. And it sounds very much like the dolphin skin creature that was sighted at Natural Bridge and, a dozen other places.
Like the reflective stuff on the side of your jogger pants, only dull.
Like you can see moonlight off of it almost. I can about picture it.
Yeah. I mean, I have something in my head that I imagine anyways. Wow. And what is it with, them making no sound when they run? Is it truly just that stealthy? That, you know what I mean? Or, how
there are theories that it could be like a spirit moving or something.
But when people see them, it's very physical. I don't know, that's creepy.
But yeah, I was checking out this former sighting he had too. I guess it's the same creature, Very interesting. Also, I want to put this out there. If you guys have an encounter you want to share with us, We would love to share it on an
Yeah, I wanna
upcoming
hear it,
episode. We would
please.
love to hear from you guys. We love hearing encounters people share, especially just unique ones and just any really. You can email those to us at hillshadowsky@yahoo.com. Again, that's hillshadowsky@yahoo.com. I'll be sure to have that on the screen throughout the video so you guys can write that down and get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, that's weird.
It's definitely weird. It
Like,
doesn't.
part of me wants to see something like this.
Maybe in the right setting.
I guess, yeah. I mean, there's another part that's like, no, I don't want to encounter that. I just want to see with my own eyes, you know? Like,
Should I read the original encounter?
sure.
It doesn't seem to be too long ago. It's under the same, crawler sighting, same user, Outrageous Silver 622. Sighting in northern Nova Scotia, Canada. Finding this subreddit floored me. I can't believe how many people have had experiences with these things. No doubt, a lot of the reports and videos are fakes by people jumping into the meme of it all, but I've had two experiences that I absolutely cannot explain, and many of the reports I've read here have had subtle details in common with my experience that makes me believe strongly that we saw the same thing. Even though I enjoy considering certain aspects of the paranormal, I'm not really one to take stuff like that at face value at all. I believe a lot of the things people claim to experience have real, material explanations. I've racked my brain trying to think of a known animal that fits the color, texture, morphology, and gait of what I saw and come up with nothing every time. I'm open to suggestions. Both of my experiences were in Canada, one in Nova Scotia and another in Ontario. I experienced this sighting with one of my best friends' roommate at the time, and we often talk about what happened. I ran over the details with him before posting this, and it's all the way he remembers it too. He actually said reading my retelling gave him chills. If you have information or experiences about this phenomenon in eastern Canada or adjacent areas of the U.S., I'd love to hear from you. Nova Scotia. In February 2021, I was living and working on a homestead on the South Shore outside of Lunenburg. I planned a last-minute road trip up to the Bay of Fundy one Saturday morning as the snow was starting to melt and the weather was mild, and my buddy decided to come with. The bay is due north along a rural county highway, about 100 kilometers from where we lived. The province has a similar geology to Maine and other coastal parts of New England, and even though most of the mountains are really just big hills and rolling uplands, geologically it's part of Appalachia. The highway in question slowly rises in elevation from the lower, sandier, rockier South Shore towards a high ridge called South Mountain, then plunges into the Annapolis Valley, then rises sharply again over a parallel ridge, which then drops into the bay. It was a mild, overcast day, about 41 degrees Fahrenheit when we left. While the clouds were threatening on the drive up and during our outing, the weather held until we started to head back. About 7 p.m., we get in the car to leave the bay. It starts to rain very hard. As we crest North Mountain, the rain turns to sleet. By the time we're over the ridge, the temperature has dropped and it's snowing quite hard. We cross the valley and begin to climb South Mountain, and the snow is absolutely torrential, like walnut-sized East Coast snowflakes. At this point, I'm beginning to worry. I was raised in the snow belt in Ontario, so I'm used to very heavy snow, but this is bad even compared to what I'm used to. On a number of occasions that winter, I had seen 1 to 2 feet of snow fall between the time I went to sleep and the time I woke up before dawn. At this point, it's quite dark. I'm driving a 4x4 SUV with winter tires, but despite the truck and my experience, I'm limping along at 10 feet of visibility in front of me at best. I'm concentrating hard just to stay on the road with the whiteout in front of me looking like hyperspace from Star Wars, and the wet slushy snow rapidly covering the lines of the already sketchy rural 2-lane. I remember going 40 to 50 kilometers per hour in an 80 zone and feeling like that was the best I could do. We were well on our way home at that point and came to a place where the empty highway dipped into a wetland area. It was a muskeg bog type environment full of half-frozen mire and small black spruces, birches, etc. The highway ran over a small sort of bridge retaining wall protecting a culvert that let the wetland pass under the road. Just as we crossed it, on the very edge of my visibility, something ran from my left side across the road to the right. It was humanoid in shape, quite emaciated, bright, sickly white, even against the snow. It appeared to be between my height and my bros. I'm 6'3", he's 5'8". It had a loping biped on all fours gait like a human bent over, its ass in the air and head sloped down, much longer legs kicking back and up as it bounded forward, and tons of shoulder scapula movement with the front limbs, almost the way a wolf runs. It was a true gallop in the equestrian sense of the term. I was struck by how fast it moved. It seemed agitated and excited, maybe even scared or angry. Remember, we were traveling 45 kilometers an hour, and this frenzied animal, or whatever it was, passed across the road as fast or faster than we were traveling perpendicularly. I didn't catch a face, and I'm glad for that, but just the glowing color and smooth texture of its skin made me feel weird and uncanny. It was such a thorough white, it almost reminded me of the whitish gray strips of a reflective material on jogging gear, though not as luminescent. It was duller, but brighter than any fur or feathers I'd ever seen. I was genuinely terrified in the moment. I've spent many years in the outdoors and in rural areas and feel very comfortable being in the sticks at night, but something about what we saw just seemed wrong on a fundamental level. The same way the sound of cutlery scraping on a plate or nails on a chalkboard touches something basic and primal in your brain that signifies bad. I knew somehow that it was a bad thing, not dangerous in the way a bear encounter makes you feel, but very off. I instinctively locked the doors and began to speed up, and 5 or 10 seconds passed before I managed to speak, "Did you see that?" and barely finished my sentence before my buddy countered with, "What did you see?" So I know he saw it too. He's the opposite of the type of person that would ever claim interest or belief in the paranormal or cryptids, etc., and doesn't have any interest in spooky shit. He even looks down on stuff like astrology and tarot cards, never mind creatures in the forest. While I'm not a huge junkie for this kind of stuff, I am cautiously open to it. He most certainly is not, and before this happens, would actively denigrate people who claim to have seen anything denigrate, I don't know. Who claim to have seen anything unusual. A dark, eerie vibe settled into the car then. Things felt very oppressive and threatening. Other than the moderate stress of the snowy road, only a few minutes prior we had been enjoying our evening and chatting away as we usually did. All the hair on my body was standing straight up, and we sat in silence most of the way home, seemingly under the same dark cloud. As we get closer to Lunenburg and lower in elevation, the snow became sleet and then rain again, and the tense mood began to lift. We stopped on the way to pick something to eat, but still don't have much to say to each other and ate mostly in our own worlds. We headed home and got to bed, but both could barely sleep that night. We were living on the same plot of land as Mi'kmaq, indigenous medicine woman who was very well versed in a lot of her culture's folklore. And out of curiosity, we went and knocked on her door after breakfast the next day and asked casually if she was familiar with anything like what we had seen. She was actually visibly bothered that we asked, said she didn't want to talk about that at all, said it was not good, and we never got a real answer out of her. I'm not sure if she was personally creeped out or if maybe there's some kind of folklore evidence among the First Nations of the East Coast. I spent months afterwards considering what it could be. My first thought was a canine or a bear that was piebald, albino, mangy, or some combination of the above. But the thorough baldness, the speed, the sheer size, and the gait, morphology, proportions just do not fit the bill at all. You cannot hide the way a bipedal animal with longer legs and arms moves on all fours, the way it kicks back with its glutes, the kyphosis of its lower back, the way its shoulders control its forelimbs, the low head posture. None of it adds up to a straight-backed herbivore or the head-forward posture of a predator. None of it. Nova Scotia is known for unexplained occurrences, but that was my first experience as such. I was able to piece together from Google Maps that it happened just north of Springfield Lake. I felt a little better once I saw the lights of people's homes. And using the aerial terrain feature to find the closest bog and culvert, I've settled on it being north of around 1933 Nova Scotia Trunk 10. You can see for yourself the wetland and bridge on Street View. Obviously enough, I don't mind doxing the location as I now live out west. So that's the original
I don't know
post
why.
from this person.
For some reason, the chupacabra thing came to mind. You know, like the little creature that was caught or died actually in Texas. Actually, I think there's been another one that's been caught since then. I don't know if it was alive or not.
Yeah, it's a strange looking critter. It's got a very large head.
You don't think it's the same though, right? I mean, because they're kind of bald. They really have any hair, but they're dark in color.
Yeah,
It's not
usually
white.
I don't know
or
for
a
certain,
light
but
color.
I know a lot of times that the chupacabras are reported. I want to say they're in warmer areas, and this was in I don't know
Yeah.
if there are many seen in Canada. And this was in
Hmm.
particular. This was a snowy day. So
Right. I mean, it did also, say like
I
your
mean,
back
if the
legs were
skin
much
was like
longer. Like,
white, I don't think it would. Those things
hmm.
are like skin tone, right?
What, the chupacabras?
Yeah.
No, they're like dark, almost black in
Right.
color.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think so.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's the dolphin skin we've
I
heard
wonder
so
why
much
he has
about.
seen them. What, 3 times? I guess.
Well,
You said he had 3 experiences. That
yeah.
was just 2 that you read.
Well, I think it was both of them, right? That was the
I thought he
first
said
one
he had
and the
another
second one.
encounter too, though.
Well,
when
it
you
was
were
the
reading
first
that.
one I read was his other encounter, right?
No, there's another one that you didn't read though. That
No,
he
there's only
spoke
two.
about.
There's the one I read initially, and then there was the previous one.
I know that, but he spoke of something different too.
Well, it's the only two that are available for us to learn about.
Hmm.
I do have one more.
Hold on,
but,
let me read this first.
I want you to go ahead with yours.
Yeah, sorry. Let me get it pulled up if I can. Okay. I just have to let it load. I don't know, man. So what do you think that is? Like a rake or a...
It's possibly the same creature, I think.
The
Maybe.
what?
And it's
What do they call 'em?
a crawler.
Crawler.
I think it very well could be a rake and possibly even in the skinwalker or wendigo category. I'm not certain, but if I had to guess, I would say these things probably stay in caves most of the time.
Yeah.
The skin, to me, strikes me as something that would not get a lot of sunlight, right? Even the eyes, it seems like their eyes are very dark.
Right?
People don't describe seeing eyes.
Okay, I'm going to read this.
Uh-huh.
Alright, this is True Scary Stories. This is The Mystery of the Enfield Monster.
All right, sounds cool.
Alright.
Where is this at?
I don't know, wherever Enfield's at. Oh, let's see. Illinois.
Illinois.
One night in 1973, 2 young McDaniel children of Enfield, Illinois, claimed to see a weird creature lurking in their yard and trying to get in the house. But Father, Henry McDaniel, chalked their creepy story up to the active imagination of childhood. However, he changed his mind later that night. After being awoken by strange scratching sounds, McDaniel grabbed a gun and a flashlight and peered outside his front door. There, between 2 rose bushes, he saw a creature that was almost like a human body, just as his kids had described. It had 3 legs on it, a short body, 2 little short arms, and 2 pink eyes as big as flashlights, he recounted to a reporter. McDaniel said he fired 4 shots and was sure he hit the creature at least once, causing it to make a hiss much like a wildcat's before it ran off toward a railway embankment. McDaniel was stunned when he saw the monstrous beast jump 80 feet and 3 jumps before quickly running out of sight. The police found scratches on the door screen as well as footprints in the dirt near McDaniel's home that looked dog-like with 6 toe pads, yet no clues pointed to an unusual creature. McDaniel's sighting made the Reading Eagle, but it was clear most people didn't believe it was true. It didn't help that a 10-year-old neighbor faked his own eyewitness account of the beast, only to later admit that his testimony was a prank against the McDaniels. McDaniel reported 2 more sightings of the alleged beast to local cops, but he said they eventually threatened him with jail time because nobody believed what he saw had been real. But McDaniel was adamant and stood behind his scary true story. If they do find it, McDaniel said in an interview, they will find more than one, and they won't be from this planet, I can tell you that. After McDaniel's public testimony about the Enfield monster, other eyewitnesses claims began to surface. Monster hunters swarmed the town, and at least 5 men were arrested after firing shots in the area and claiming to have photographed the creature. To this day, no explanation has been uncovered from the small town creepy story.
Cool.
3 legs.
3 legs. And,
it jumps 80 feet.
Big pink eyes, right?
Yeah.
What does the skin look like, though?
They didn't say. I don't know. Let me see. There's a
That's
the original article is actually here.
If you guys are explorers or you guys are adventurers, you like to get away from people, man, be careful.
Where's that paper at?
Because if you don't see Bigfoot, you might see Dogman. Or if you don't see Dogman,
this thing had 3 legs, though.
You might see this thing. And if you don't see that thing, you might see a crawler.
I do not know why.
Or a Wendigo. Or a UFO. Or you might slip into another dimension and just go missing 411. You don't know. Just stay on your P's and Q's everywhere you go. And question everything. Everything.
Okay, I don't know why that
Do you got anything? Any other ones tonight?
possibly. Here it is. 3 legs, pink eyes, as big as flashlights.
Yeah,
so this is the original newspaper article about it.
Make sure you write that link down for me.
Well, I have it already wrote down over here.
Okay. And I'll, as always, links in the description box. You guys can
6
check this
toe
stuff
pads.
out.
What does a dog usually have? 5?
5.
And then the big one?
Is it 4 or 5? 5.
I don't know. I
Or
don't
is
have a
it
dog
6?
to look at its feet.
I'm not sure. It could be 100 right now for all I know. I want to say 4 to 6. 4 to 6.
Let's see.
Really good documentary coming up. I'm looking forward to about the missing plane, the Malaysia.
Oh yeah, Malaysia. Yeah, that's
crazy
strange.
story. There are theories about what could have happened, but basically his plane goes way off track and ends up
Everybody's heard of this part.
going past Antarctica or somewhere in that direction, up north, way up north, far up north.
Well, it was Malaysia.
Well, yeah, but it took off from Malaysia and then like rerouted and went off course.
Completely off course.
Way crazy, like somewhere that you would never go, right? And there's a lot of controversy around the events that took place. Like I don't think the plane was reported like it should have been, right? I think they pretty much let it slip away, and I don't know. I'm looking forward to watching it.
I was looking at stories.
I'm looking forward to checking it out, learning more. There's been a lot going on with the Murdaugh trial.
Oh yeah.
That's a crazy case
It is.
going on from North Carolina.
You haven't heard about
family,
it? I don't know how you haven't. But.
Family of basically attorneys and people who run courtrooms, basically prosecutors, people who are who's who in this town, and I want to say initially it started with the son having a boat accident, right?
Well, actually, the first thing was that boy Stephen Smith that was killed.
Right.
But if you watch the
like
Netflix
tied
documentary,
together. Right, it comes later.
The first thing is the boat incident.
But there basically is 5 murders tied to this one guy. He's on trial right now for the murder of his wife and son.
It's crazy to me.
Really crazy individual.
If he did it, and the
it's
way
looking
he's
bad
acting, it's looking really bad for him. I just don't.
For 2 years, he claimed
evil.
he wasn't even near when it happened, and then all of a sudden they catch his voice on one of his son's phone's recordings, and he admits,
the son that he killed.
Yeah, the son
Or
that was found dead minutes later after this recording was taken.
Alleged, sorry.
Well, no, he was definitely murdered minutes after.
Oh, I was saying from what I said.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, allegedly he did it probably, but yeah, he's on trial for it, and it's not looking good for him. Like apparently, they had found some gunpowder residue on a raincoat that the guy said. It's not looking good.
No, I was actually in there watching a little bit ago where they had a what do you call it? Like a DNA analyst or something on there.
It's crazy, man. These people think they're above the law, and nobody likes people
Well,
that
they
think
got
they're
away
above
with
the
so
law.
much.
Yeah, if you know people like that, nobody likes those people, man. Nobody likes them. And here's the thing: karma,
Oh yeah.
karma always comes back around, man. This
Well-
guy's whole empire crumbled.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
he had a pain pill addiction. I think is probably what really ruined him. I feel like probably
I don't know.
it probably
I
had.
think evil. If you're
Evil's
able to do the
evil.
stuff
You're
that-
right. You're
that's-
right.
That's already there.
It is. It's deep rooted.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess if you got something else, I'll let you go because I don't have. I just have one more, and it's not.
I don't honestly. I was
You-
hoping
you
maybe
don't?
I would, but I don't
Well,
think so.
I
Nothing
guess
is going-
I guess I'll get on to this next one, and this also I think I want to say this comes out of Canada. Yeah, it's Canada, northern Canada.
I want to try to.
This one's about a possible
next week, though.
Wendigo sighting.
Okay.
I'm fascinated by these creatures. These come out of Native American lore as well. And is the Wendigo the cannibal or is that the skin?
It is
It is.
cannibal,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
a cannibal. Like you.
Because that's how you turn into one.
Right.
Here's
So this one is under the subreddit Paranormal, and it's on Reddit, and this one comes from user Bacon Beatdown,
All right.
called Wendigo. It took me a minute to see that because he's got 4s for A's and
Oh, okay.
3s for E's. So yeah,
Wow,
very
was the
nifty.
actual word bacon beat down?
I
on
guess it must
bacon?
have been, which is funny. That's hilarious that two different people was like, I want to use Bacon Beatdown.
No.
All right, here we go.
All right,
I'm gonna close this out with this one because I'm
Okay.
kind of tired myself. I've been debating on sharing this story with anyone outside of my small circle of people that were there, but I want to share my experience in hopes that it saves someone's life or to give understanding of what someone else has experienced. Late fall 2010, in northern Canada, I went deep into the wilderness with my father and my eldest brother to hunt for moose. We left in the early morning, just before sunrise, trying to cover as much distance as possible before nightfall. We traveled winding rivers and had to repeatedly portage over rapids all day. We decided to set up camp just over halfway to our destination. My father figured that we'd make the rest of the journey tomorrow. Well, when everyone bedded down for the night, I decided to go grab some firewood and relieve myself down by the bank of the river, just out of reach of the light from the campfire. Out from the tree line, about 15 yards away, I could hear rustling in the bushes. I watched the area where I heard the noise and focused on that spot. I felt kind of funny, like dizzy, lightheaded, and I could smell this putrid stink like old milk or rotten food. Then I saw the tree start to morph and move over so slightly and began to take the shape of a head and slight facial features. My eyes began to adjust to the darkness, and along the tree line, I could hear this voice coming from there. I recognized it. The voice sounded like one of my relatives who had recently passed. The face took shape of my relative. "Hello," they said. "I've missed you. Come see me." I smiled and stepped forward a bit, but stopped to analyze the situation. My relative's face stopped smiling and became emotionless. The skin began to turn pale and peel away. Chunks of flesh from their cheeks began to fall away, and I felt shock and fear overwhelm my body. I couldn't make sense of it all, so I started to back away and make my way to camp. I didn't realize at the time that I had been walking towards the voice and I was further away from the firelight. The voice became angry and began shouting at me to come here. So I turned to run away, but as I looked back one more time, I saw the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. It was rotting flesh on gnawed bone, caved-in eyes, and a hollow chest cavity. This humanoid creature was tall and super thin. I ran as fast as I could, trying to yell for help, but the fear had made my voice quiet and raspy. I ran along the riverbank, and I could hear the heavy breaths and the stomping feet from this thing right behind me. I made it onto the top of the riverbank, but it grabbed a hold of my leg as I jumped up. I gripped and tore the grass trying to lift myself and yelled as loud as I could. Then finally my voice came back and I yelled that someone has my leg. My brother woke up and ran over to where I was, then he pulled me up and took me over to the fire. I was terrified, trying to explain what I saw and that it looked like my relative, but not. I was trying to convince them that I wasn't seeing things, but my brother nodded his head and said, "I saw it too. I know." That solidified it. He acknowledged that it was real. We stayed up all night after that, rifles loaded and close by. We packed up when the sun was coming up and went back home. We haven't shared that story with anyone out of fear of being labeled as crazy or liars. I've had nightmares and couldn't sleep for months afterwards. Hold on, why did this...
Well, that's creepy.
Hold on, I'm not done.
I know.
Alright, I'm almost. It's almost.
Okay.
I've had nightmares and couldn't sleep for months afterwards. I would see things, dark figures looking into my window, or hear whispers when I was walking home at night. Eventually, I was seeing this dark figure daily. I went to a medicine man, shaman, for help, but I've learned that the ceremonies only relieves it temporarily. Friends have given me everything from protection pouches to certain crystals. I found out that there's a strong possibility that I may have encountered a Wendigo. I learned that if you encounter one and survive, it attaches itself to you like a parasite. I learned that it could only do this if it touches you, which it did. Ever since that night, I've been on edge when I enter any forest or wooded area, which sucks because I love being outdoors, hunting, and in nature. Now I always feel like I need to keep my back against something when I'm out in the wild. Anyways, make your own conclusions about this. I've paid a price for being an ignorant child of the stories of old. They are real. I can attest to that. Stay safe, everyone.
Ew.
Now, does that remind you of something we were talking about recently?
What?
There was a story I shared a few weeks back
With the
about an
face?
encounter in New Mexico.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember that?
I'm not. Tell me more.
The two cars, it was a car passing by
Uh-huh.
another car, and they seen this thing with like a jaw hanging off its face,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the flesh was like too
Yeah,
tight
yeah,
on
yeah.
the skin.
Yeah.
The anxiety, there it is. I'll post the link to this. But yeah, it sounds like the same creature, and it very well could be a Wendigo. It sounds terrible, and
Yeah.
another thing it reminds me of is that night we stepped on the back porch and the thing mimicked you from the corner of the house. That was
Yeah.
weird. I'd never experienced nothing like that.
That's the only time that's ever happened, too.
But it sounds like these things mimic people or try to lure their prey out to them. I don't know. If you guys do encounter anything like this, do not go chasing after this thing. If you think you hear one of your dead relatives calling you from the tree line, rest assured it is not your dead relative.
Right.
It is a Wendigo with half his jaw hanging off his face, ready to chew into you.
I wonder what that was that night that did that back to me.
I mean, from all accounts, it's could have been a Wendigo, I guess. I don't know, man.
It wasn't
I
far from
know.
us.
Trust me, I know how crazy it all sounds, but
It did happen.
it did happen. It
There's
absolutely
been
happened.
several weird things that have happened since we lived out here.
There's been a lot that happens out here. I can't wait to document some more things.
Nothing's happened in a while, though.
Well, the Barbie doll down on
yeah,
the thing.
that wasn't too long ago.
That was
What's
fairly
new?
recently. There's been a lot of rain here.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
And I think we're about to have a lot more, too.
I believe you're right. But when we don't, we're gonna get out and check some stuff out, and possibly things will pick up soon. We're almost into
Yeah,
springtime.
I don't want nothing crazy to happen to me.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I'm not looking for that kind of
Because
action.
whatever that was close that day.
Hey, I stay covered with the blood, man. Always stay
Yeah.
covered. Stay protected. Make sure you seek the protection of God in heaven
Mm-hmm.
and His angels and all you do, because there are demons out in the world. You got to stay protected and stay safe from. And these things possibly could be some kind of demon.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I hear a lot of with most of these entities, they smell horrible.
Yeah. Like sulfur sometimes.
And demons smell like sulfur.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying they're all demons, but you got to think, like, if something's a demon, then there are things of the same nature, which are also angels.
Yeah.
Because all demons are fallen angels. So if I'm right and some of these things are demons and they're angels that, people encounter out there of the same nature. But if, you know, you encounter one of the rotten ones, I suggest you seek God's protection.
Yeah.
I don't think you got much other choice. I don't think any kind of gun or man-made weapons can help you at all.
No. Why not?
But yeah, if you guys enjoy the outdoors, but stay safe and stay on the lookout. Pay attention to your senses.
Bring
It's
God with
important.
you everywhere too.
Yeah, don't go anywhere without God. I would never recommend going. Not even up the road a little bit. Don't even walk outside
Right.
without God. Don't wake up in the morning without the Lord with you. That's what I recommend. But that's all I got for this week.
Yeah.
It's been a busy week. I didn't get much sleep last night, and I will give that to White Castle. They got me for a few hours, but I plan on making up for it tonight.
You do. You talk about this every time.
I'm very
trouble
tired,
for a
man.
while. I'll sleep.
Well, you make me wait so late to record. Like, I'm usually quite exhausted, and not to mention, well, right now is like 9:45 here in Kentucky where we're at, and we're usually in bed at 10 because we get up to get the kids ready for school at like 6, like 10 till 6. Way too early. I don't know who makes that rule about school starting that early, but nobody likes that.
I mean, I don't necessarily mind getting up that early.
Here's my take on it. 7's perfect. If you can stay up till like 10 to 11, you get your 8 hours, wake up at 7. You got plenty of time to take care of everything before the day really gets going too heavy. 6 is just 6. It's not even daylight out there.
A lot of people have to leave that early for work.
Yeah,
Earlier.
I know. I'm just saying. I don't think I'll ever be okay with the 6 o'clock thing. 7, I'm happy with. Like I think like even days I don't have to get up, I still a lot of times I'm up by 7 or 8. So yeah, I can do. I don't know why 6 just never sunk in right with me. Never felt good.
Anywho,
But yeah, that's all I got. You got anything else this week?
nope.